Hey, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Soon as we hit Tuesday, it starts to go really fast, doesn't it? Welcome back, Karen. Good to see you. Are you on your elliptical machine on the exercise bike this morning? You have a full gym happening, don't you? That is really that's impressive. Because although I was doing very well with my exercising, I'm just not feeling it. Instead, I've been taking lots of W's with buttons. I can't say the word or he'll start going nuts. And doing my weightlifting as I go. We walk along at a good old clip, right? I'm not holding his leash and I'm doing stuff like this. And yeah, I figure it must be doing something, right? It must be doing something. But the fact is, it's beautiful outside. The animal would like to be outside. I mean, he's got a huge backyard that's fenced in, but the animal would like to be outside. And I suppose it's a good 2-for-1 if I exercise at the same time. Why can't there just be healthfulness and gorgeousness without exercising or diet? Some people have that. I'm so jealous of those people. So welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I wanted to look today. I kind of slid in an extra day, although it's always crazy and there's plenty to do. I wanted to spend a little bit of time together this morning. MJC, good morning to you too. Maureen, good morning to you. Welcome. I hate it when things are piling up, and I had gotten the McGown newsletter. So I wanted to look at that together this morning, and I figure we could always flip over to our conversation on dye colors too, right? We were enjoying that so much, I think, talking about what colors contribute to what recipe of colors contribute to a specific color in rug hooking, a specific swatch set. And I wanted to show you what I'm working on here. I've been having, yesterday I was pretty caught up on orders, so I started thinking about our projects, right? And the rose book is now pretty set. There are lots of people doing roses. There's more than 70 people doing roses. So it's going to be a good full book. I think it'll be a beautiful book to look at with lots of patterns. I have been thinking and putting feelers out about a rose book party. So that'll be coming at you fairly soon. And I don't want to get crazy ahead of ourselves, but I do want to also start thinking about this fall's autumn themed book. Last year it was the Haunted Rug book, like my all-time favorite of my books. I mean, it was almost, what was it, like 98 or 99 Halloween and autumn patterns. I absolutely loved it. But this year, because there were so many items that I could not fit any more into that book. It is an enormous book. And the Haunted Rug is available on Amazon. It's available through Ribbon Candy Hooking. It came out as a workbook. So it's not the glossy pages, right? It would have cost a lot more if it was, because it's an enormous book. But it's almost 100 patterns, and they're blown up so you can use them. You can blow them up. You scan it on your printer or whatever, transfer them, however you do all of that stuff. But it's a lot of patterns to choose from, and I had to cut so much out of it because of the size of the book. So going into this year, coming out of the Haunted Rug book, we will be having another autumn book, and it's called the Mystic Carpet. So same kind of idea. I've been talking to some people. I talked to my buddy Melissa Gauthier this morning about her chapter, which is specifically like haunted women, including like Victorian murderesses who've done famous crimes, people who have sort of haunting and supernatural historical stories that are fairly well known, right? Fairly well known women in history who have this either sort of mystic or murderous, sort of Halloween themed biography. So, and the Mystic Carpet will be shaped and formatted differently than the Haunted Rug, right? It's a completely different book. So I am working on some patterns for that. I do have some patterns that I never got to last year, ideas. I will be working on that very soon, I promise. So let me know if you're interested in that. Because as I say, there's probably 30 or 40 patterns and chapters that are just done, that I could not get into the Haunted Rug without hitting like 300 pages or more. So, I mean, that's a lot, right? That's a ridiculous amount. So be thinking about that, because that's coming up too, as well as all of the things that we're doing with Magpie Times, right? The next issue, the theme is, it's the summer issue. Anything summer will be great for the gallery. And otherwise, the theme is Wish You Were Here vacation postcards. Whatever that means to you. Maybe you have a collection, maybe you've done some rugs based on postcards, or maybe you have a summer themed article or recipe or project. You're always very welcome to, to also give your pattern if you want to give a project to your friends through Magpie Times. Doesn't just have to be mine and Judy's patterns. We put other people's patterns in there too, if they correspond to a feature article. And of course, there's no advertising in Magpie Times, but if you do write a feature article, you are very welcome and encouraged to advertise your business or your brand or whatever it is. Maybe you make natural dyes, maybe you make, I don't know, frames or some kind of cutting board or something that we might use as rug hookers or punchers. You are always welcome and encouraged to advertise if you put something like a feature into Magpie Times. But otherwise, there's no advertising because I want it to be there's no advertising and there's no profit. But I want it to be 100% there for us all the time. My issues are on the way. We will be sending, like, moments from now, as soon as I'm done with this, for everybody who bought Magpie from me, you will get the PDF this afternoon. I didn't realize that Judy had finished editing it. Her part is to edit it. I didn't realize that. So as soon as I said to her, what's going on? It seems like it's taking a long time. I found out that she had finished, and we had to assimilate it on our end and submit it for printing, and we did that. It was immediately accepted. It's now printing, so it's coming along, but we will be sending you the PDF in the meantime, so you can start working on the projects that are in the current Busy Bees springtime issue of Magpie Times. But be thinking forward to the summer issue, Wish You Were Here. Be thinking even further to the autumn issue, Barn Quilts. Whether you're thinking about putting in a quilt article or something to do with a quilt block. I do want to take a road trip with my buddies who I know often log on here in Hoosick Falls, New York. I want to do a Hoosick Falls, New York day. I'd like to organize that soon, where we go and take pictures of all those barn quilts. For the autumn issue, I also encourage you, if you are near a community that has a lot of these barn quilts on the old buildings, to take photographs of them and submit them, because we'd love to see them for that article. That's 2 issues out. And the last article of the year for Magpie Times is going to be kitchen spice, whatever that means to you, right? Very 1980s general winter theme. But of course, we'll have Christmas stuff, winter stuff, all of that stuff. Linda B., great to see you. Sunny and cool. That sounds like perfect weather. You're not sweating it up, but the sun is shining. What's better than that? Gayla, have a blessed day. You too. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday. Catherine, good to see you. It is sunny on this Wednesday morning. I bet. Really good to see you. Catherine says the Murder Awaits rug is still on my frame. Just ordered nylon loops. Excellent. Oh, funny that you said that. That's a good segue. Great. No rush. It's absolutely no rush. I'll be working on the Rose book until May at least. So, and then we want to get that done because we want to have a party and get that out. But the thing about the Mystic Carpet is I will put forward a bunch of, so I have an exhibit at Sauter Village this year. I will put forward a bunch of the mostly large, some of the larger, right, a few small ones, but some of the larger rugs for an exhibit at Sauter this coming August that is based on Halloween and autumn rugs from both the Haunted Rug and the Mystic Carpet books. So be thinking about that. If you are working on a project or you're looking for a project, we can't hang everything, right? It's like, it's just one exhibit, but we will be hanging the Mystic Carpet will probably not be out in August. It'll probably come out in September. So we will be like looking, maybe it is out by then. Maybe I'm that organized. Come on. That's not realistic, is it? But you never know. You never know. Pipe dreams. So there will be at Sauter a lot of the rugs that are from both the Haunted Rug and the Mystic Carpet. So it will be up to the people there what they choose. But I will put forward a lot of our work, and hopefully we can hang up as much as possible. So we'll see how that goes, loop by loop. So my friend Haley at Loop by Loop, I'm very close to some of the other brands in rug cooking, and they tend to be people who I've connected best with, right? So I'm very close to the Tigger board, right? Because I chose them. Rebecca Martin White of Storyteller, you know how much I love her. She is in Colorado, but she will be up here in July. So you'll see some videos with us together then. My friend Naomi, who is in Naugatuck, Connecticut, which is very close to me, and she is Ravensgate Primitives. We're very tight, as we are with, we're kind of a trio here. Haley at Loop by Loop, Haley Perry in Warren, Rhode Island. So if you saw the video the other day, last week, Naomi and I took a road trip and went to visit Haley, as we often do. And I did a couple of little videos there. One of Haley's kits that I thought was extraordinary for people who like doing kits that are kind of multimedia, lots of different materials. I did a short video on YouTube, a short meaning under 60 seconds. And then we did a longer video looking at her potholder loops that she overdyes, which are basically pantyhose, right? Because I know a lot of you search for them and I don't stock them. Ever since my contact at Hanes dried up, they're just not doing that program anymore. I'm not able to find them. So I know where Haley gets hers and overdyes them. It's just a lot of work. And time is a thing for me because I'm focused on publishing books and magazines and being here. It's a lot of work. So Haley does have, and I hope you watched that video, beautiful things in her Loop by Loop store, and one of those beautiful things are these potholder loops. So I'm going to show you the project that I'm working on here. You probably can't see it well, but this is one of the roses from the Rose book, and this one is called The Poet's Wife. And I'm working on this now. I'm just fleshing it out. There she is sitting at a table. She is the poet's wife. She's in her undies and her brassiere. And the poet's wife, Rose, is a remarkably beautiful, bright yellow rose, like a real friendship rose. So I'm going to hook that there. I haven't gotten there yet, but you can see my background is all of these potholder loops from Haley. And you saw me get them the other day, right? You saw me buy the potholder loops. And there is a tonal quality to them, right? They're mostly, it's a hit or miss background with potholder loops. They're mostly greens, purples, a little bit of brown, a little tiny bit of blue and fuchsia. But you can see how beautifully and easily they hook up. It's very, very lush working with these potholder loops. So I finished the background there on the poet's wife. I was working on her armpit just a minute ago when I had to come live here. But you can see I'm working away on that. And I've got maybe 5, 6, maybe even 7, maybe even 8 rugs that I'm doing for the Rose book. So I'm well ensconced in that. But that's the project I've got going right now. And, you know, it is so much fun. These are some of the leftover loops I had from Haley's. It's so much fun working with these. These colors for me just didn't, I pulled them out of, I bought a bunch of bags from her. I pulled them out of the bags because they just didn't fit. And I was really struggling with this pattern. I was really struggling with making the leaves stand out. The flowers, no problem, because the flower is bright yellow. But the leaves want to stand out. And I don't know if you can see. I don't know if I can see. Probably can't see on camera. Maybe, no, you probably can't see. But there's a swirl right here and right here. So there's a few swirls in the background that I pulled out the hooking, right? So they're blank, but you probably can't see them well. So I was thinking, what kind of material and what kind of color would I want to use to hook these leaves to make them stand out against this crazy background with all these little swirls? And you know what I did is I ordered some more of that scrubby yarn from Amazon. So it's super inexpensive. It's the scrubby stuff that you crochet to make like little Brillo pads, you know, or scrubbies for the shower. It's rough, but it hooks up a dream. And I know that from my friend Julie Hassler, who is the queen of hooking scrubby material. I have gotten very into it myself, but it gives so much texture. I used it. I brought some skeins of it to the class I taught on Friday at the church. 2 more of those coming up if you're near Hartford. And people were hooking with it and really enjoying it because it's considering what its job is, right, to like scour things. It's remarkably soft, easy to work with, very full, very reliable. It doesn't snag, it doesn't catch, it doesn't hurt your hands. It's not rough, it's incredibly soft. It's really a miracle material for me. I love working with it. So I'm going to fill in those leaves really bushy and brushy with 3 different colors of that green yarn that I ordered, and I'm really excited about. I'll show you how that goes. Loop by loop. Maureen says, I am steaming the pattern. The witchweed. Oh, I love that one now, and I will get a photo soon. Sorry. Doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter at all. Tons of time, right? We can do all the projects we want whenever we want. All year round, we can work on projects for the magazine, for books. It's all good. It's all good. We'll use everything sooner rather than later. But there's never a rush, and there's no need to be crazy and stressed, right? Never. Tons of time. So the Rose book is coming out this year. The Mystic Carpet is coming out this year. I had to put Cordelia's Color Year away for the time being. It might be that I get to that like Fast and Furious when I get past the Haunted Rug stuff. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see, because that book is in my head with a list of other books that I have in my head. And I want to put out projects to everybody. Elizabeth, great to see you in Biloxi. Welcome. I want to put out all these project ideas. So if you feel like jumping in and you're thinking, man, I would love to be working on a project that ends up in a magazine or a book, you're in the right place, right? Because we would love to have your work. Even if you're an absolute beginner and you're hooking something for the first time, people want to see your work. We want to see the work of people who are beginners and people who have been doing this forever. And speaking of people who have been doing this forever, let's look at this really stunning issue of the McGowan Guild newsletter. Now, it comes like this, right? It's a newsletter. It's not a magazine. It has the holes in it so you can put them into a binder and collect them yearly. Do you have to be, Karen says, velvet makes a great leaf material. Dang it, I have a ton of velvet and I didn't even think of that. Huh, it's all downstairs too. I'm kind of tempted to do that now. The scrubby stuff is supposed to come today. I'll see what that looks like color-wise, but I have every color of flipping velvet. I mean, I have invested heavily in Diane's velvet. Karen, that's a great idea. I'm gonna have to check that out because it's still a lush, oversized, mushy loop, but it has such a different texture and it's so much more formidable than the pantyhose material of the loops. Interesting. Whether or not you are McGowan certified, right, or even that kind of a hooker, you can absolutely subscribe to the newsletter. It's good to know what's going on. This is, again, it's a small publication. I can't even remember how often they do it. Do they do it every month? They might do it every month. Volume 54, issue 1. This is February 2025. It might be that it's, here, let's see if they say at the beginning, because I love receiving this, right? This isn't like a full blast magazine, but it does give you an idea of what people are working on. And there are always a couple, 2 or 3 really remarkable features in every issue. And it's good to support the McGowan Guild, right? They are, the McGowan Guild are teachers. But again, you don't have to be a teacher to subscribe, right? They're very happy for you to subscribe and to be in the loop, so to speak, with all of the McGowan news, because the McGowans are also a guild, right? They don't have as many chapters as, for example, ATHA, but the McGowans are a guild. Let's see, I'm just wondering if it says at the beginning, newsletter published quarterly, okay, by the National Guild of Pearl K. McGowan Rug Hook Crafters, Inc., located in Hudson, New Hampshire. Okay, excellent. So send membership dues. It's $30 per year to McGowan Guild, and it has the address McGowan Guild, 23 Pasture Drive, pasture, like out to pasture, Pasture Drive, Hudson, New Hampshire, 03051. And $22.50 of the dues are for the newsletter. That's good to know. I'll hold it up here. So if you're watching this later, let me get it in focus, you can pause here if you want to send a check and receive this. It's just another fun thing to receive, and it's filled with interesting information. I'm going to talk about the image on the cover at the end because it's the last feature. But in the meantime, I want to tell you what some of the other features are in this issue. Now, I have to say, it's funny that this is the issue. It's funny that this first this is the first article was interesting to me, and I'm gonna read most of it to you. It's called "The History of the Widow's Mite" by Nan Bass. Now, The reason I haven't read this yet, right? I just skimmed it, but I'm going to read it with you together. The reason I'm happy that this article is in here is because I heard about the McGowns during the certification doing this traditional sort of feature in the classroom that is called the Widow's Mite. And I'm as anxious as you to hear what that's all about and what the history of the widow's mite is, because, and I'm curious. I'm curious from the point of view of like folklore, regional folklore, and storytelling, because when I heard this, it made my blood boil. Because at least for me, in this part of New England, the widow's mite, like as an expression, is for me very negative. Because, like, again, everything is very regional, right? Expressions are very regional, but the widow's mite for me has always meant has always referred to a widow, right? So not a very important person, and her mite, right? Tiny little bit of information is it's like a mocking term. Like what would the widow possibly have to say that would be of interest to anybody else, right? Interest or importance to anyone else. The widow's mite is like a negative expression, at least for me historically. In all of the instances that I've heard it, you're kind of making fun of the widow because she's such an historically unimportant character with not a great scope of knowledge or experience, right? World experience. She's just a widow, right? So very dismissive, like the widow's mite, like what could she have to say, you know? So the idea of the widow's mite being used in the classroom, I always thought that it upset me, because I'm thinking that's a super negative connotation. But I hope that I'm wrong. Let's find out, because this whole article by Nan Bass is called The History of the Widow's Mite. Monique, great to see you. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. When the McGown Teachers Workshops first began, it was at the request of the group, request of a group of ladies who had gathered each summer to learn both from Pearl McGowan and each other. In the beginning, as it goes, there was no teacher and student per se, but rather all students learning and growing together. Just as it is today, each of them had talents, insights, experiences that were unique. And when they gathered, they freely exchanged their knowledge with one another, learning by listening and sharing. And when these people got together, both back in the early days and then when the formalized teachers' workshops were established, the tradition of sharing widows' mites have been part of the intention setting of the event. The intention setting of the event. What is a widow's mite with regard to the McGowan Guild? For us, it is a helpful hint. In today's vernacular, it might be a hack or a cheat code. It might be on how to corral your supplies, keep track of your progress, figure out how much wool you need, or keep your scissors from getting lost while you hook. What you share is up to you. Why has it historically been called a widow's mite? The history of the widow's mite comes from the Bible and refers to the monetary offering that a widow made at the temple. It was a sacrificial offering for her, showing her good intentions of giving over all that she had to God, right? Again, follow through thought. She has very little. When it was introduced to the workshop, it is to show that everyone had something to give regardless of their tenure in rug hooking. We all have something to offer, and we can all learn from one another. Pearl was intentionally setting the tone for learning and sharing with one another, with the expectation that we grow together when we are all involved in learning. Well, that is lovely. No, it's widow's mite, like M-I-T-E, like might. Yeah. No, that's interesting, widow's mite, because if you haven't seen it written out, you would think like widow's mite, that's got to be a positive thing. No, it's widow's mite, like little bug, or a little bitty bit. Mite has a lot of definitions, but yes, going back to the Bible. So that all makes sense, right? That all makes sense, because I know when they run the workshops, the new people have to get up and do a widow's mite. In other words, show something that they think that the older, more experienced people maybe don't know or haven't seen or haven't thought of, and it must be challenging in within that context and with that audience to come up with something that is truly not a mite and something really useful or original or different. So I'm happy to really understand what the meaning of that is, and it did make me think. it did make me think. Um, oh, I see. It made me think about these old expressions, right? And I was thinking about this anyway because of the cover of Magpie Times. I did the telling the bees, and I was talking about that to somebody the other day because they had not heard of the telling of the bees, and of course that goes back to your like somewhere in the UK, like somewhere in Great Britain. It's hundreds and hundreds of years old. The idea of telling the bees. It was at church on Sunday afterward at the coffee time there, and and she said, oh, so what would happen if you had bees living in the yard, whether you were keeping them or they just lived there, what would happen? And I said, well, it's more what wouldn't happen, like, and they could retaliate, and then you have what's called the bad hive, like it's the bad queen, and it creates this bad spirit, and they get to be very aggressive bees. Possibly, or more worryingly, the bees will just leave. Like they'll just leave you because they feel sort of jilted and they feel disconnected from the family. If you're not going to tell them what's going on and keep them up to date on the news of the family, they're just going to go. And everybody wants bees, right? Because of the honey and the beautiful products that can be made, wax, everything, right? So yeah, so it is interesting to think about expressions, and I have always thought about doing a book of these old expressions because they are regional, right? Some of them make their way right through the world, right? They just zip right around the world. But there are a lot of expressions that are regional to a place. And I know there's books of them here. Like when I go to bookshops, I went to a bookshop in Woodstock, Vermont, and there were little books that I got on Vermont expressions. And I knew some of them, but not all of them. Some of them are so localized that they don't make their way to southern New England. But I love finding those books with those expressions. My question is, can you think of some expressions? Because this could be a great future book project, hooking up old time sort of adages. Like, can you think of an old time expression that might be regional, that is not super common, right? That people might go, I think I've heard of that, but I'm not sure, or I have never heard of that. What does it mean? Right? It would really be fun to illustrate some of these old expressions. It would be fun to illustrate the widow's mite. I mean, I would love to do that kind of a design in the biblical sense with the widow, with the little coins in her hand, representing her entire worth on this earth, right? Monetary worth. Everything is a transaction. Sadly, but having her, maybe God's eye view looking down at her with her hand and some little coins in it, maybe stained glass windows blasting in the background, could be a beautiful composition. I wonder if you can think of some, because I'd love to write them down. I wonder if you can think of some old sayings that we don't want to lose, right? Because they have this curious sort of value, or they are just beautiful pieces of the past. We should think about them and try to collect them together. And a widow's mite is certainly one of them. Moving on, there is another great article here. Now, oops, sorry, that's not it yet. We have touched on Pearl's pastels, right? So this is written by the granddaughter, Jane McGowan Flynn, and we already know, sweeping it under the rug. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I like that, Karen, because that could be a great design, because it's like sweeping what under the rug, right? It's like because that's a separate piece of storytelling. Sweeping what under the rug. That is super evocative as an expression. I know it means like the cares of the day, or your worries, or something that you need to forgive, right? Yeah, interesting. That could be a very good one. I just thought of the elephant in the room. Could be a good one too. There's so often an elephant in the room in my life. I don't know how I have so many situations where I turn up and there's some kind of weird dynamic, at work, at home, everything. Elephant in the room is another interesting one that could be really fun. Karen, skeleton in the closet. That's a great one. That's a great one. See, these could be great designs because you could really do some personal storytelling that gives you clues about, well, what is the skeleton in the closet? What are you sweeping under the rug? Yeah, this is exactly what I mean. Yeah, interesting. So if you remember from past conversations about Pearl McGowan's books, about the McGowan newsletter, Pearl has a bunch of pastels, and Jane McGowan has been Michelle, great to see you. Good morning in Texas. Jane has been sharing them through these new newsletters, and this is one of Pearl's pastels, and Pearl McGowan's pastels. And Jane writes, although fruit is no longer a highly desired subject in rug hooking, it was important back in the early 1950s. It was one of the nature first offshoot subjects, which hookers requested once the subject was introduced by Pearl. I'm not going to read all of it, right, because there's good content here, and I hope that you will support the McGown Guild by subscribing. But it's a short conversation about the use of fruit as a motif in rug hooking. Traditionally, yes, it has been more popular in the past, much more popular than it is now, right? We see a few fruity rugs, not a ton. There is a fruit rug coming out in the haunted rug in the Rose's story, the Rose's Tale book, and it's a design that I did based on the rose that's called the Strawberry Hill. What a beautiful name. That's the thing about roses, right? They have such beautiful names. And like we're saying with the old adages, the old sayings, sometimes you hear one, like I'm illustrating some of the roses that I'm illustrating myself that I haven't shared. Well, you just saw The Poet's Wife, really evocative, right? There's The Dark Lady is one that I'm working on, and I'm doing it like almost like an Agatha Christie cover. It's like someone in a trench coat, and they're like The Trouble with Harry, the Hitchcock movie. There's just some legs sticking out at the bottom, and this big primitive style overgrown row of roses, The Dark Lady. And I'm also doing Belinda's Dream, which is like almost like a psychedelic one. It's like that crazy dream state where you I've been having this a lot lately. Maybe it's the change of season or losing that 1 hour, who knows? But I've been having it a lot, that I have these crazy dreams that are frantic and frustrating, and I'm exhausted when I wake up. And I think, dang it, why can't I just have that dream that I open a closet in my house and it leads to like another wing of the house? I love that dream. I get so excited. And you go in there and you go through the rooms and you think, damn it, how did I not know that this house had all of these extra rooms? I've been living like an animal with junk all around me. If only I had known, I would have been using all of those, right? Everybody's had that dream. That's another fun idea for a project, is like dreams that we all have, like this one. And then your tooth comes out in your hand and you're like, oh my God, my front tooth just, everybody's had that one. The other classic, right? You stand up to go somewhere and you forgot to put your pants on or your underpants. I mean, isn't it funny that we all have the same dreams? There's got to be something in that, right? Karen says, don't judge a book by its cover. Might be fun, a fun title. Yeah, that's another good one. That's another good one. And again, like, what's the book? There's a lot of thinking and evolving in these ideas. I love this idea. This will have to be a future project for sure. But just the idea that Pearl McGown, I mean, such a pioneer, right? The most important person, certainly, in the history of modern rug hooking, without any question. Such a great collector and shorer up of patterns, old patterns, antique rugs, saving those old designs, traveling and collecting those old rugs, writing about those old rugs, creating patterns, right, based on old designs and new designs, based on what was contemporary and compelling at the time. Prayer rugs, the Far East, Europe, Asia, right? Places that she traveled in Asia, so many different subjects, but keeping sort of the home fires burning with these eternal motifs like flowers and fruit. Still very popular in the mid-20th century, right? Coming out of those two wars, feeling really connected to sort of country and home domestic subjects like flowers and fruits. Melinda says, oh, I have that room. I love that room. I'm so excited when I find new rooms. I know, but it is disappointing when you wake up and you're like, damn, I had a plan for that whole room. All my stuff would have fit in that room, right? Could have taught classes in that room. It is fun though, isn't it? That's such a good one. But this is a great article because it's showing you some McGown patterns that involve fruit. So it is a conversation on fruit, how to dye fruit, color planning for fruit motifs. And all of it is based on the pastel, right? The pastel that Pearl did. So these pastels are just incredibly beautiful. Like all of the pastels that we've seen, and we do see them through the newsletter, right? So that the newsletter is such a great source for several conversations, and one of them is this ongoing conversation about Let's see pearls. I showed this in the slide a lot better. Let's see pearls pastels. Pastels are so um, they're so brilliant and beautiful. It looks like she's working on a dark ground in this one, and that fruits are lighter. And it's funny because I got to show you this pastel I have up on the wall here. I'll grab it. It's funny because at the church, a lady passed away right before I started going again, right? Because I was going, and then I took like 15 years off. Beverly, and she was she passed away before I got there. So when I got there, I think it was like the week of her funeral. I didn't know her. I didn't know anything about her yet. But her son ended up donating Beverly's hundreds of pastels to the church because the idea was he wanted her friends and people who knew her to be the ones who took the pastels, right? So I took one because I love them so much. Let me show it to you. Beverly loved to do pastels. Now, pastels are very, very messy, and you can crap them up really easily just by touching them, right? So you don't touch them. I'm going to have this framed. But Beverly loved working on a red background. Almost all of her pastels are on this red paper. And I thought, are you kidding me? That is so beautiful. It's just a sketch, right? Like it's a pastel sketch on red ground. And there was a bunch more on red ground that I absolutely loved. But that was my favorite. And there were hundreds. There's still probably 100 sitting there waiting for a home. And people come and go, and people go into the room and go through them and stuff. And I always worry that when people touch them, they don't know to not touch them, right? Like, because you can spray a pastel, but I don't want to unless I have to, because I don't know archivally if the spray will ever yellow it or something. I'm just not sure, even if it says non-yellowing. Anyway, pastels are difficult, and they are so beautiful. And it is another wonderful thing to know in our like bag of knowledge that Pearl McGown was also a wonderful artist, and particularly a wonderful pastel artist, right? Because that is something. Then there's a bunch of pages that have interesting widow's mite ideas, right? So a hack using the phrase widow's mite, right, as a placeholder for a hack, right? What are some of your great hacks? What are some of your great hacks? We always talk about mine because I've got the mic here. What are some of your great hacks? Are there things that you figured out that you think, well, I do this all the time. This makes the most sense. What a great time shortcut this is. Maybe the rest of us haven't thought of it or figured it out yet. Feel free to share or always post those things in our Facebook group, which is Raw Cooking and Punch Needle Club. If you're not on Facebook, we're here. We try to say all the important things here, share all the important news here too, because I know not everyone's on Facebook, and my God, I get it. I get it. But this widow's mite is about storage and using these, you do see these plastic things, right, around. You see them at Joann's. Most Joann's are closing, at least in my region, and Michael's, and online. Cheryl, great to see you. Oh, late in hospital, had second left knee revision. Okay, we'll watch you later when my brain is working. Okay, that sounds good. Get well soon, my love. Ryan, great to see you. You are fine. Happy Monday from Springy, North Texas. Got my copy of Magpie. Thanks for including you. Sure thing. So again, if you got your copy from me, they are coming. And this afternoon, you'll get the PDF of the entire thing. So you can start looking at it and downloading patterns that you want to do. And I hope there are some good patterns there for you. I think I put 4 patterns into this one at least. There's lots of beautiful patterns in there. So this particular widow's mite is about storage. And because we're heading into yard sale season and flea market season, be looking for these storage options, right? Plastic is not my favorite thing, but I love being able to see inside something, right? Because most of my stuff is like, you can't see it, but giant baskets, right? It's pretty, but it's not super useful. It gives me that country flavor, but it's not super useful because I can't see inside of it. Anything plastic that has divisions like this, what a great thing to find at a yard sale. This probably be like $1 at a yard sale, right? And be able to put your colors. I mean, talk about organized, right? I try to be organized, but I'm definitely not. And man, wouldn't it make life easier to be just a little bit more organized, right? And don't you feel like some weird weight has lifted and you weigh like 50 pounds less when you clean up your space and you can actually see your stuff and you rediscover things that you forgot you owned, and then you get very excited and wonder how you ever survived without the thing, but you haven't seen it for like, 6 months or 6 years because it's been under your garbage. Welcome, welcome to the world of everybody's same story, right? Our shared story. There's another article in here. Well, first there's the announcement for the rug show judging presentation, Upping Your Hooking Game. Um, so, if you're interested in Zoom meetings and classes, conversations, be sure to log on to um, the McGown Guild, www.mcgown, M-C-G-O-W-N, guild, Guild.com. And you will find where you can join, where you can have access to the different things that are going on. It's a whole different set of things, right? It's a whole different set of things. Parallel train tracks to ATHA, or anything, right? Anything. The McGown Guild is distinctly its own, and they have both chapters, this publication, and events that happen. So if you want to be in the loop with that, make sure that you are participating and that you are on their site, finding out as much as you can find out. Oh, Shannon, good to see you. Good morning, my buddy. And Melinda says, okay, I'm not going to say it because I still don't like the expression. Here's your tip of the day. Use a sweater defuzzer you use a sweater defuzzer when you finish your rugs. Takes off wool dust and brightens the rugs. That is so interesting. It's one of those handheld things that looks like a razor with the things that spin in it, or is it just a little brush thing? I'm just wondering if it's the motorized one or the little brush thing. Because the little brush thing, I have one of those. I'm wondering if you use that. It seems like it has a rasp edge on it and it's super sharp. So I'm wondering what form of defuzzer you mean, just to be on the safe side. And Judy says, interesting, Melinda. Do you work primarily with yarn or wool strips? Good. Conversation going. I will report back in case the comments aren't there later. There's another great feature here, a hooked portrait of Grandmother Goulding from Helen Mar Parkin. This is an extraordinary, hold on one second. This is an extraordinary piece of work. I use the lint roller to defuzz, Karen says. You all are so good. Well, I was sitting here about to go live. I hooked the Poet's Wife's brassiere in t-shirt material, and it made like lint everywhere. And my high-tech way of getting rid of the lint while I was waiting for the show was tape. But your ideas are much better. They're more sort of comprehensive and quicker ways. Motorized. Okay, that's what I thought, Melinda. Because the other ones are super, super, super scratchy. I wouldn't put it near anything, not even a sweater, like really. So the motorized one, that's a great tip. That makes a lot of sense. And Rita also says, hey, Rita, I use the electric defuzzer. It makes my words pop when I'm using yarn. Fantastic. That's a great idea. I'm going to order one of those. Easy to get. I noticed that when I was last with the Wilmingtons, I noticed my buddy Dee was using like a car vac, like a vacuum for the car. It was tiny on the surface of her piece as she hooked it. And she was even taking her wool strips and like, zzz, with the vacuum to try to get some of the lint off of it. And that's another one I meant to put into my Amazon cart and I forgot. But that's another thing along with the defuzzer that I would like to have. Just lint in the air, right? It's everywhere. It's like on my computer. It's on the camera. I'm sure it's on there. Like it's everywhere. So these are all great tips. Really, really good tips. Hooked Grandmother Goulding. Let's look. This is an extraordinary one. So here's Grandmother Goulding, and this again is the feature is by Helen Mar Parkin. This mat was started in a class with Donna Harkman in February 2024. Anyone who knows Donna's work will see that this project owes a huge debt to her expertise in portraits, elaborate backgrounds, embellishment, and subtle color schemes. I wanted to learn how to hook a monochromatic portrait, so I chose a photograph of my maternal grandmother, Helen Mar Goulding, 1876 to 1970. And this photograph is dated 1902, which depicts her in a beautiful hand-sewn dress and a spectacular hat embellished with faux flowers. Donna drew the design 14 by 21 on linen using a photograph as a guide. And again, I'm not going to read all of it because I hope that you will support the McGown Guild by getting these newsletters as well. But I do want to show you how this transpired because this just evolved into the most extraordinary portrait. Like I think this is one of my all-time favorite portraits, without a doubt. I'm not big on realism, but I'm making an exception here. So you can see the detail of it coming together, right? This is an early stage. You can see the detail of the costume, of the hat, the shading on the face, very monochromatic. So it will be, the face is monochromatic, but obviously the dress is not. The costume itself is not. And here are some of the materials that were brought in to create this great Victorian look and what will be a heavily proddy hat. I'll show you that in just a second. The finished product, right? And you see where the striping came in, because the striping is not in the actual photograph. The striping, it reminds me of ticking, right? It almost reminds me of a men's shirt pattern. I really like it, the conservative quality of the background pattern in contrast to the really wildly feminine feel of the costume and the figure. It's a great contrast. You can imagine the same piece with a really colorful background would also be beautiful, but having a more austere background, I think, really pops the nature. Oh, hey, Kirsten, pops the nature of the piece. And what a gorgeous finished piece. I am not a big proddy person or a big embellishment person, but there are times when there are extreme and notable exceptions, and this is certainly one of them. You notice that the hat has that veil on it, which a lot of hats did at that time. It's a bit of netting or tulle, Tulle, and that's kind of wrapped up is a three-dimensional component to the hat, as well as lots of I think proddy flowers. They might be attached flowers, I'm not sure, but the hat has a proddy quality for sure. Lots of different flowers kind of nesting on it. There's also at least two pins, actual pins, that are on the piece. And what a great opportunity to do some memory museum work here with something like this, where you actually have bits and bobs from that very person. And what a great opportunity to use them in a portrait rug like this, right? Let them wear it again for all of time. Absolutely astonishing piece of work by Helen Mar Parkin. So you see, it's not a huge publication, the newsletter, but in terms of quality, it's extraordinary, and no advertising in this either, right? This is a Guild newsletter. The only sort of ads that you see are shout outs to say, like, do you want to participate in that? Are you interested in this? Will you be at that? Melinda says, I have switched to a rechargeable, the battery thing. I was going through too many batteries. Oh, totally. On my 4-foot circle rug, the defuzzer removed 2 solo cups full of fuzz. That just makes me wonder. I mean, I have never done that, but it makes me, it's like cutting the fat off something, sorry, vegetarians, that you're going to eat. And it's like, wow, that was a lot. Of course, that's my favorite part, but not with the fuzz. That's really interesting. It makes me feel like I should do that with all of my pieces. I'm going to order one right after the show. Even without a smile, you can tell she was a beautiful woman. Absolutely, right? That, there was something so serious in those days with photography. You get when you get the little hand cameras that are popular in the 60s and 70s, you get people fooling around in the yard at barbecues, and they have very approachable, happy, joyful, contemporary faces. But the older photographs, and if this is 1902, it might be that she was waiting for the shutter, right, which would take a few seconds, if not longer, right? I think it's more the earlier Victorian period that you're waiting like a minute or two for the shutter. Very, very still. But there is something about that time. I remember even my grandmother was not one for smiling in photos. And it wasn't that there was anything wrong with her teeth. I mean, she had dentures, so her teeth looked perfect. They looked better than my teeth. But she always did but very serious and solemn looking. And she was the wildest little elf. I mean, she was like a little firecracker. She's naughty as anything, and she always had smiles and inappropriate jokes. And I loved that. But never in pictures. You would never know from a picture. I think it's that generation. I don't know what the thinking was. It's funny, isn't it? Because the earlier you go back into photography, you get this sort of weird culture of people standing in front of something. And it was like, I don't know, it's kind of ownership, right? When you go somewhere, you are collecting souvenirs, right? You are placing yourself in, I don't know, hopefully they'll still be there if you watch this video next year, state parks. You go to Yosemite, you go to whatever, Yellowstone, you stand in front of Old Faithful, and you're, older pictures, they're just standing there like, the storytelling kind of is like the geyser's going off, I'm standing in front of it. And there's just something about that time that it was more about like stamping a stamp on your passport, like I'm here, than like, now we do kind of selfies and it's like, I own it. Like I own this. This is like, I like this. I own it. I'm assimilating it. But back then it was just like, here's a dead whale that washed up on the shore. I'm standing next to it. And just a different time, different style, right? And it could change. It could change again. Rita says, order one. So we're talking about the defuzzers with different blades. Mine has USB cord for charging. I think I'd like that too because I can plug it into anything now. Isn't it, with all of this USB stuff, I way prefer it to batteries, I agree. But don't you feel like you're getting like tangled up in a nest of cords? There's cords everywhere I go. I went nuts when I got in the car this morning because there was like a viper's nest of cords all near the gear shift. And I got like crazy and I ripped them all out and put them in a ball and threw them into the backpack because I'm like, God, they're going to put on my gravestone like cords, and more cords. But they are very helpful. They're better than batteries. They're better for the environment. They work faster. It's all good. Thank you. I'm not going to show you every feature, but there's another feature in this McGown newsletter, Hooking an Oriental Rug, The Journey, by Jennifer Curran. And this is part 5. So some of these are like the Thornbirds, like it's ongoing storytelling from one to the next. And in this feature, Jennifer is hooking an absolute... Is Richard Chamberlain still alive? Just made me wonder. Jennifer Curran is hooking a beautiful, light grounded Oriental rug. I'll just show you a sneak preview of it there. So this is an ongoing article and we get little bits of information as we go along. There's another article by Martha Lowry, Hooking Berries and Grapes. And, I got to say that for a small publication, there's a lot of content in these newsletters. If you're thinking, how do I start hooking a berry? I mean, if you're a total beginner, this step 1, step 2, step 3 is going to be really helpful. Now, we are talking about hooking berries and grapes in a specific style, in a fairly realistic style, right? But yeah, if your goal is to make stuff, berries and grapes that look like that, then you want to know how to hook them in what order. So that feature goes on. It's not just the 3. It goes to step 7, which includes the background. And it shows you bit by bit how to fill in a little round object like a berry or a grape. And then we come to the end. And I love this feature. This, I think, is my favorite feature by Chizuko Hayami. Chizuko Hayami. 18th Studio Exhibit. We had a studio exhibit in Tokyo. Let me show you the picture while we're here. First, let's see. Rita says, here's a hack. At a hook-in the other day, my friend said ladies were bringing small generators to plug their lights into. Oh, interesting. Their lights for shining on the piece. That is so interesting. Small generators. That makes a lot of sense. Because for older buildings, yeah. Not a lot of plugs. So true. And and for older buildings also, not a lot of light, depending on where your guild meets. Yeah, if you use a light, because I mean, it's better than, a headlamp, right? If you use a headlamp, a miner's lamp, I'm not making fun of you at all. I'm not making fun of you. But yeah, if you don't have to and you have other ways of shining a light, that is a good way. That's a great idea. That's really interesting. That's a great idea. Those are small little things that are easy and portable. That's a great idea. So let me show you what this feature looks like. Hang on. We are here. 18th Studio Exhibit. We had a studio exhibit in Tokyo, Japan from October 21 to 27, and this is last year, 2024. There were about 200 people who came to see it. That's great. The gallery was 5 minutes walk from the train station, and some nice restaurants and coffee shops were around. We displayed almost 90 rugs, including some celebration 34 33 and 34 rugs out of Rug Hooking Magazine. All of the people left very good comments. We were so glad to have this exhibit. Here I am attaching some of the rugs shown there. Next exhibit will be March of 2026, again in Tokyo. Now, the front cover was hooked by, let me show you this again, was hooked by the person who's writing this article, Chizuko Hayami, and it is the giraffe. And let's look at that one more time, just honor this great piece. Hold on, there we are. Now, let's just say it one more time, right? We're talking about Japan. There was an exhibit of about 90 rugs and 200 people from the public came. That's great. Talk about outreach. That's great. As the president of Tigger, I can say there is a good and growing presence in Japan. That is great. There is a McGown teacher, right? Mrs. Hashisuko, I think her name is, Fiyomo Hashisuko, I think, who teaches on a regular basis. And I think all of these people are, for the most part, linked. She said there's not a lot of kind of outsiders. Like if you rug hook, they're in the group together. They're learning together. It's an extraordinary group, and it's great to know that this movement, this North American 19th century craft, is becoming firmly ensconced in Japan, right? That's really good news. So these are some of the rugs. I won't show you all of them, but these are some of the rugs that were at the exhibit. So you can see there are lots of different styles, and on the next page there's two more pages of rugs, and they're beautiful and unique and different. And I pulled a couple more. This one, which is my personal favorite, I love this rug. So this is by Naomi Kawano. I don't know. This just has my heart. It feels very 80s to me, like these toll painted boards, like cutting boards and stuff. It reminds me of something that's toll painted, but then it has this amazing, really vibrant pop art feature to it, in that there's like the Hollywood squares of colorful mugs happening. So it's almost like a trompe l'oeil piece in my mind. It almost looks, at first I thought there was a rug superimposed onto a painted piece of tollware, painted piece of wood. And then I realized that it's all hooked, and it's hanging by a little stick. It's so pretty, and it's so different. It looks like a cabinet, like a little painted cabinet with all of these mugs inside of it, and how different they all are. My favorite is the top right, like the little pink one with all those little confetti bits on it. But I love the sheep under it. I love the owl. I love the argoyle, the sunflower, the bargello on the bottom, right bottom row. They're all so pretty, and it makes such a feast for the eyes. It's such a nice collection. It makes such a feast for the eyes. I'm not going to show all of these again. There's quite a few in here, but this is another one that really kind of struck my fancy. This is by Yoshio Nara. And again, a beautiful rug that has a country feel, right? That's my favorite kind of feel, right? I love primitive and country stuff. I love 80s stuff. That's where I'm from. And it's got this beautiful little piece of crockery, like a little vase or a little bowl or soup bowl or something like that, with two handles, two little birds, sort of fracture style. Looks like little birds' nests on the bottom right. Some other fracture designs, like the sun right on the top. And then the tulip itself is very fractory, right? The whole design is really beautiful, skillfully done. And the colors aren't showing up that great in this picture, I have to say, and I'm sorry about that. I'm always taking a picture of a picture, so it's like 3 generations out from the real thing. But the colors are really stunning. They're very peaceful, but they have that 80s, 90s palette, which will always be my favorite. And in the background, the plaid is really well done. Really clever piece, smart and pretty. All of the pieces in this book, I'll just flash you, right? Some more of the pieces. Some are very sort of McGown style, right? And others are quite different. So it's interesting to see, because I think Mrs. Hashisuko in Japan is McGown trained. I think she is. So she's teaching, right? So she's teaching a lot of the McGown work that historically looks a certain way, and then some newer stuff, right? And people are doing their own work and original work, and it's just extraordinary. But one of the great things about this McGown newsletter is that um, you get to find out what's going on, not just like with it's the Athagills, different places in the world too, where there are McGowan teachers who are doing work and are doing outreach. It's interesting to know who they are, where they are, and what they are up to, because now we know there's an exhibit coming out in March. That's this month. So they're probably furiously working on that now. I'm going to have to write to Mrs. Hashisuko, because she is remember I told you I set up a auxiliary committee for Tigger. So there are heads of every country who I can go direct to that person instead of just, hey, who here is from Japan? In this case, it's Mrs. Hashisuko. So I can go direct to her and say, oh, listen, I read in the McGowan Guild's newsletter that you are setting up an exhibit this month. Can you take some photos for us so we can post them on the Tigger site, and we can see what you're working on, right? We can see what you and the hookers of Japan are working on. Makes us feel like we have something huge in common. We are unified. We are together. It's exciting, right? It is exciting. All right, I'm going to get back to work. I've got a lot going on today, lots of little stuff, and I want to finish The Poet's Wife. So, hey, I will see you on Friday. Friday, I'm headed over to my friend Naomi's place, Ravensgate Primitives, in Naugatuck, Connecticut. So we will be there fooling around, working on some projects. We will be partly scripted, partly unscripted. So there will be sort of a theme to the show, but we also love to chat, and we will give our, I'm going to say it, widow's mites as we think of them, and we'll do a few sort of fun interactive things on Friday night when I'm over there in Naomi's studio. You can look forward to that at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Friday. Rita says, I've been told by Liz Marino we need to let the McGowan Guilds know they need to start using Zoom. It would benefit people that would like to get certified that can't travel, like me, to camps. Okay, that's a great. I talk to Liz like almost every day. I didn't realize that. Rita, that's great information. That's great feedback. Yeah, we should let the McGowan Guilds know that they need to start using Zoom so that people, right, can be certified in other parts of the world, right? That is outreach. If we have one teacher out there, in my opinion, whether they're certified or not, who can be on Zoom, who can learn, beginners included, and then teach people in their country, then we have a lot more participating countries participating in this craft. You know, what was interesting to me, I forgot I had to write back to him, but my friend Pierre, I do a lot with Pierre Sylvain. He's here in Connecticut, and I gave him my huge rug tufting frame, and I'm never going to find the message, but so if you're in the Facebook group, you saw he did a scene from the Bible. I forget what it was, but it was massive. It was like 8 or 10 feet wide. I think it was more than that, actually. It was massive. So he used the tufting gun for the first time, and he wrote and said, thank you for the frame. I love having it. It's a great thing to have. And he said, but the process went fast with the tufting gun, but he said it just doesn't feel the same. And there really is no substitute for holding a hook. And I have to agree with that. I've done a little bit with tufting and shuttle stuff, and for backgrounds and big fills, big projects, it can be good. But I have to agree, there is something so immediate and meditative about holding a little wooden tool in your hand and seeing each loop as it comes up in front of your face. There is something about that you cannot transfer to a motorized tool. And while sometimes speed is the thing, everything is pros and cons, but certainly there is something lost, right? So while we I mean me, right? I can only speak for myself. I do welcome different forms of rug making, including rug tufting, into the fold. And looking at any textile art is exciting to me and something I want to share and promote. But at the same time, I do feel like it's apples and oranges. And yes, speed is great if you're a contemporary artist and you're doing big pieces and you're using the gun, but you lose, in my opinion, you lose the thoughtfulness and the intention of each loop when you work that fast, right? So it was interesting to me that he gave that feedback, because he feels the same way. I didn't influence him at all. I said, here, come pick up the frame. I'm never going to do a piece this big. I'm at peace with knowing I will never do a piece this big. I just don't have that kind of time. But I do have my small tufting frame, and I will do stuff with it. But it's interesting, isn't it? Michelle says, children connected to my hooking because they saw tufting on TikTok. That's a great segue, right? So it's still like someone doing fiber art. And nothing against tufting. Tufting is great. You can get great speed going. But it is a different craft. It is apples and oranges, right? The result still looks like a rug, but it is apples and oranges. And I don't think it's less or more. I just think it's an orange, and I do apple stuff, you know. Um, um, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Melinda says I think it was March 2026. Oh, okay. So next March. Okay. Yeah, thank you. You're right. I think you're right. It's only 2025. Thank God. Rita says, I met her at Tigger in Kentucky. She's a doll. Very nice to work with. Yeah, she is such a sweetheart. Um, Rita says, I'd never be able to hold one of those guns up. I have the same thing. I don't like the connotation. It feels wrong for me. And yeah, it's just, it goes fast. And even though I go fast, I hook to go slow, right? I go fast with everything else. I don't want to go fast when I'm doing like my peaceful craft. It's supposed to bring me down, settle my ass down, right? The last thing I want to do is go at breakneck speed. For me, it defeats the purpose, right? Because if my whole life goes in high speed like that, I'm going to have more breakdowns or worse, you know. But something different for everyone, and there are pros and cons to everything. My friend Dee, again from the Wilmingtons, told me about this boy, 8 years old, who's doing the most extraordinary rug tufting stuff, very small pieces. So I'm very keen to drive down and interview him, and she's trying to set that up with his mom because he's 8. But the work that I've seen of him that she showed me, he's someone related to their guild, someone's grandson, is extraordinary. You're going to love seeing it. Yeah, everybody's different. Everyone has their preferences. You are all welcome here, that's for sure. I will see you on Friday. I will not be drunk. I promise. I'm having one beer with Naomi in her she shed. That's her studio in Naugatuck in the back of her house. We will be having fun there, and we will put on a great Friday night show for you at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need me before then, ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. Have a great